Hi everybody, I'm joined here by Tom and Steve from our construction department to talk all things construction and find out what it's really like to get a trade and work in construction.
So of all the trades, I believe that electrical, there's more knowledge out of the others to being a qualified electrician.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So once you've learned it, it's not necessarily a skill. It's just something you need to retain.
If I showed you how to wire a socket, you could do it again, over and over and over and over. If I showed you how to skim a wall, that would take you years.
It'd take you years, absolutely, because the skill element, you've got to develop the skill.
Electrical is more academic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Plastering, bricklaying and such is more skill. And I always think plumbing's in the middle, if I'm honest.
It is in the middle.
It's not quite as academic as electrical, and it's not as skilled as plastering.
The thing is, it's a mix of both. So pipe bending and fabrication, that is skill. And that takes time. That's the skill you have to acquire over time. Doing things really well in plumbing, it is a skill. Whereas, and there is a lot of knowledge, especially if you do gas, but it's probably not quite, it's just not quite as much as electrical.
Yeah. Do you think there's nowhere to hide when it comes to plastering? It's one of those where you've got to be good and skilled.
If you walk into a room, everybody sees your work, everybody. And decorators will wind plasterers up saying they fix our work, but you'll get lazy decorators who won't.
So do you find when people come into college and say they start on level 1 bricklaying, for example, is there a lot of crossover once they've completed that to then think, actually, I've had a look at plumbing and I want to try and do that? Or do you generally find that the kids stay in the lane kind of thing, in with that one particular trade?
We do get a lot of crossovers as such, but touching on just what I've said there, we would always advise a learner to do the research before they come to the college. I remember when I finished school and I wanted to do joinery, and there was no places left, so they offered us one in plastering. I remember saying to my dad, "What does a plasterer do?" I didn't have a clue. We didn't have any plasterers in. None of my family were plasterers. I wouldn't have had a clue. But we didn't have YouTube back then. You've got to do your research before you come in. If you want to do construction, look at the trades we offer and then just go on YouTube or Google and search for what they do. At the end of the day, nobody likes getting out of bed and going to work. But if you can half enjoy the trade, what you're doing, it makes your life so much easier.
What would you say to someone who struggles a little bit with maths at school, isn't guaranteed, like their level 4? We'll probably have a lot of students that come through like that. What would you say to them about how maths is included in your particular trades? Is it still quite important?
Yeah, of course. I mean, obviously, when you do a trade, you're doing a trade for a reason, to get skills and knowledge to continue that trade throughout your career. What might change is how you use that career. You might go and want to work abroad. You might want to go and work for somebody else. But ultimately, what most of our learners will say is, I want to work for myself. I want to be self-employed. I want to make my own hours. I want to make my own money. I want to choose when I have days off, and that's fine. But when you go self-employed, nobody is going to price up work for you. All right, so I know obviously electrical and plumbing is very different in terms of the maths that they use for their job. You don't need maths to be able to plaster a wall, but you need maths to calculate how many bags of plaster you need. Same with plumbing. You can't just go and buy 50 metres of pipe, copper pipe, and then only use 2 of it for that job. Otherwise, you're losing money.
Just obviously, like personally use, what would you say is kind of the biggest pull for working in construction? Like, it might have been the reason you kind of got into your particular trade. Money? That's what I always tell everybody.
Well, I wanted to be out there. I like meeting new people. You meet a diverse range of customers, the people that you work with, the enjoyability of your job by just having a little bit of banter with the people you're on site with. You can't get that many other job. So for me, it was just about being out in the big bad world. I know a lot of my mates went and worked abroad for a couple of years. So once you've got that skill set, you can do what you want with it. So yes, money is a big thing. There's always going to be houses being built, and there's a massive skills gap at the minute.
There's going to be construction everywhere, and like you said, I think it's especially relevant like plumbing, electrics, and plastering. You can work abroad. Right, you can work offshore. So my brother worked on offshore for about 10 years, and there are former plasterers who do fireproofing on there. You earn really good money.
Yeah.
The construction industry isn't just being a plasterer or a plumber, and this is what I tell a lot of my students who they know they don't want to work on the tools, but they're interested in plumbing at the end of level 2. The industry is really broad, so you can work in sales within the industry, you can work in technical support within the industry, you can work in design within the industry.
There's other routes you can go down as well in terms of the management side. You know, you might want to be a site foreman, site manager. Things like architects and surveyors are slightly different. They're more the professional side. You would have to go to university. But I know a lot of site managers who got there just based on their level of experience.
And having the knowledge, and kind of you guys can impart that onto them, even just in your lessons, just chatting with them. And I imagine it comes out quite naturally about like the progression opportunities and what kind of jobs they go into.
One thing we always try and do is relate what they're doing to our experiences. You know, that's why we got into this job, is to pass on our experience.
Yeah.
Obviously, it doesn't help with your knees and back breaking over the years. But
what advice would you give to a young person or an adult who is considering a trade or getting into construction? What would you say to them? Obviously, yes, go for it. But what would your personal advice be to that person?
For me, be open to other trades as well. I know we've mentioned before about mastering your one trade, which is great when you're learning, but when you get out there, you will pick up different skills.
Well, that's really good to hear. I think, you know, the young people, they are keen. I think they have got a bit understanding of the skills gap that we always kind of talk about, and the schools are covering it as well, which is really, really good to know. And it's finally getting out there that doing a trade or construction isn't just for people who are maybe not as academic. You know, we have got a lot of academic kids coming through and doing them as well. It's not a lesser option.
You'll get people coming with, like you say, 5s, 6s, and they want to do construction.
They want to do it.
You know, they don't want to sit in an office. They don't want to answer phones or draw buildings. They want to go out there and build the buildings. And for me personally, I know which, even if I'd getting A's in all my GCSEs, I still know which route I would have went down.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have been sitting in an office.
That's good to know.
Anyway.
Well, I think that's amazing. But yeah, so thanks again, guys. And hopefully we'll see some new faces in September just off the back of this podcast.